Okay. So, I've been in therapy since, oh, geez. First time I remember going to therapy, I was in second grade. I was kind of in and out of it through school. Go lay down. And in high school, I started really going in earnest, weekly sessions. I remember the first therapist I had was a specialist in family counseling and eating disorders. But she took my case because we were poor and she was cheap. And so I've gone to a lot of different therapists. Um, as I got older, got out of high school, therapy stopped being a thing that mommy told me I needed to go to, or etc. Thank you. And so I had to, of course, start making an effort on my own to start, going to therapy. I start calling people on my own and trying to set up appointments and starting to go. And I'd go to a therapist, and you go through the intake, you explain your whole life story. You do 2 or 3 sessions with them, and then you're like, man, I don't like this person. They're kind of an asshole. Or I don't feel like they're listening. Or, man, this person's fucking stupid. Does not take a genius to become a therapist, mind you. Not a doctorate position. Just, So you'll get a lot of ones that suck. You're going to get a lot of therapists that are going to be like, oh, how does that make you feel? Of course, that's the first layer of joke about therapists, right? But if you've ever really been to one, then you should know what the real joke is. Okay. Today we're going to talk about mindfulness. Do you know about mindfulness? Oh, fuck you. Fuck you, people. So, of course, there's different kinds of therapy, right? There's talk therapy, there's CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, there's DMT. I'm sorry, DMT is something else. DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy. And if I remember correctly, dialectical, have you considered meditation for your ADHD? Yeah. Have you considered sitting in one place and closing your eyes and just trying to fucking focus? Have you considered just fucking trying harder, Beard? Have you ever considered that? Have you ever considered just not being mentally ill? Or maybe just like meditating it away? So you'll go, if you are a person who seeks therapy, you are going to go through a lot of therapists before you find the right one. And maybe you won't, but it's a lot like dating. Not only do they need to not be fucked up and not have a bunch of fucked up shit wrong with them, they actually got to kind of vibe with you a little bit. It's got to be the right thing you're seeking, right? The way in which you are given help affects the way you handle that help. So one of the first therapists that I ever really had respect for was this big African man that I met in New Jersey. And he had a thick accent. And in one session, he just like ripped my psychological asshole open and was like, you don't fool me, kid. I know everything about you. And like, he's telling me shit I haven't told him. Like, your father was not a big part of your life. Your mother has spent a lot of time away from you. I'm just like, oh, how do you know? How do you know me? So that gave me a lot of respect for the dude. That he was just like, called your shit. But I didn't really like him. He was kind of a dick. But that ability made me respect him, right? So you don't even have to be someone I really even like. If you are actually really good at your job, I'm just going to respect you because you're a good psychologist. So, let's see. Into my mid-20s, really didn't seek as much help as I probably should have. Let my mental illness just run. Drugs are a fun way to try to deal with mental illness. So lots of drugs, lots of partying. And then in my later 20s, it was like, oh, that's right. That's right. I'm not mentally well. I need to see a therapist or I'm going to kill myself. So I started going to therapy again. And I remember I had to see this. The company I started going to was a company called Teros. And in order to see the therapist, once a month I had to see the psychiatrist. Now, I'm a little weird. If you couldn't tell. If a person who's needed therapy their whole life isn't a little weird. Yeah, Beard knows about Teros. So I look up my therapists online. I look them up by first and last name. I find their Facebook. I look at what pictures they have open. If your ass has a live journal, I'm going to find it. And I want to know who you are. We've all been online for 15 years now. What footprint did you leave? And I had a therapist who was a younger guy. And his online presence was just this dorky, goofy gamer guy. And I couldn't take him seriously because he had this picture on his Facebook of him with a parrot on his head. And he had like this long mustache and he's twirling it. And it was just like, I can't respect you. So I had that wasn't my point. I had to see this psychiatrist once a month. And I go in to see her. And we have our little talk about my emotional ups and downs. What meds have I been on? What meds am I allergic to? What's worked in the past? She says, okay, well, before I prescribe you anything, we have to get you clean. So I want you to go to a rehab facility to get over your addiction to marijuana. How about we smoke to that? YouTube's not going to fucking monetize any of my videos anyway, right? So I says to the lady, lady, have you ever heard of a place called Rat Park? Now, since this is being recorded, and I think that my only viewer at the moment is my very good friend and partner, Mr. Beard, who I almost called Mr.Bones again. So, stop me if you heard this one. I'm kidding. Don't stop me. I'm going to tell the story anyway. Rat Park. So this psychologist, this guy, he wants to study rats. He wants to study how addictive is cocaine, right? And maybe we've all heard this story. The rat has a little bit of cocaine put in one bottle of water, and there's another bottle of water in there, and the rat can hit a button and get a little bit of cocaine in its water. And if you know how the story goes, then you know you've got a dead rat. Because that rat will just keep hitting that button for cocaine over and over and over and over and over and over until he dies. So what did we learn from this study? Wow. Cocaine is so powerful that if you're given the option, you'll just kill yourself doing it. If you're just given enough supply, right? So some time goes by and another guy goes, you know what? That experiment fucking sucked. I don't believe in those results. I'm not big on anti-science, but fella says, I don't think that the rats did the cocaine for the reasons that the experiment says. So guy builds a huge rat enclosure. He calls it Rat Park. He wants it to be an all-inclusive, all-encompassing place where rats can run around and have fun together, have a nice little colony, plenty of things to do, lots of enrichment, things to play with. And then he introduces the bottle of cocaine water. What happens? Well, Lots of rats try it. In fact, lots of rats like it. They try it a few times, and they have fun. They run around all hyper. And then they go back to hanging out with the colony. In fact, the rats that were the furthest out on the colony's social circle are the ones who are most vulnerable to addiction to the cocaine water. And it was also found that when a rat would spiral out into addiction on the cocaine water, the other rats would make an effort to include that rat more in their colony. What does that tell us about cocaine? Maybe that if you're not locked in a fucking cage with nothing to do but cocaine, it's like if you went to a prison and went to a prisoner and you're like, hey buddy, we know you're locked in solitary confinement, so here's as much cocaine as you could possibly do. Have a blast. Okay, well, yeah, they're gonna do cocaine until they kill themselves. They got nothing to do. But if you go up to someone who has a healthy social life and a healthy family life, healthy circle of friends, and you give them a bag of cocaine, they can do that bag and be okay. No, I'm not saying you should do drugs. I'm telling you, you should do drugs. Kitty, I gave you food and water. Shh, go on. So, back to my psychiatrist. I say, have you ever heard of Rat Park? She says, no, what's that? I'm the patient. I'm the patient. I shouldn't be more up to date on it. When was Rat Park done? We're gonna Google Rat Park experiment. Okay, the Rat Park experiment was done in the fucking 70s. If your knowledge of psychology stops before 1970, your shit is so far behind, you are dangerous. Literally. Your shit is so far behind, you are a danger to your patients if you stopped learning about the human mind in 1970. And if you find that you have especially a psychiatrist, not therapist, but a psychiatrist, hello, Cassie! Cassie, we are deep in a conversation about therapy and therapists. So I hope you and your viewers are ready to talk about therapy. The message I wish to impart on those that just arrived is if you have a therapist whose knowledge of psychology doesn't supersede the 90s, find a new therapist. Find someone who graduated in the last 20 years, because their knowledge of psychiatry is going to be entirely different. So I wandered the desert of the real, from therapist to therapist, still searching for someone who could tell me something more than mindfulness. And I ended up... Adios, Cat C. Thanks for stopping by, buddy. I love ya. So... makes you feel heard but not placated, and that's very true. And we're going to get to that in a second. So, of course, time goes by, my mental state falls apart again. My ass ends up back in the nutty bin. Thankfully, my pup over there is a service dog now, so he was able to come inside with me and actually hang out with me inside that fucking hellhole. If you're going to kill yourself, check yourself in. Do literally everything you can to stop that from being necessary, because the public options for emergency psychiatric care intake or inpatient facilities just usually aren't very good. And if you're already in a pretty bad mental state and you have to go somewhere where you basically feel like a prisoner, it's not so good. It's not what we call a good look. Okay? So I get out of there and they're like, look, we made you an appointment with Southwest Behavioral Services. Okay, cool. So I go and I have another derpy therapist, some dorky dude who thinks that the only way he can connect with me is through music. So he's like, hey man, do you like Linkin Park? Yeah. The problem was he was my age. So it's almost like he just was non-participatory in any of media up until he got out of college as a therapist and then was like, uh-oh, I better catch up. So he just started working his way backwards. Hello, Pat Monster. Thanks for following. So he introduces me to, and it was right about now also. Everyone be nice. There's a lot of people in here who don't know me. We're all adults, right? And those of you who aren't, just leave. So it was around this time that I had my whole like, oh shit, I was raped as a kid and had no memory of it thing going on. And I'm trying to talk to the Linkin Park guy about it. And he's like, well, have you ever listened to Soundgarden? I'm just like, dude, I'm trying to talk about the fact that I was fucking raped. The fuck are you trying to talk to me about? So he and I have about, I don't know, 5-6 sessions together before one day stop supporting streamers. That's a good name. So I come in and I'm like, look, dude, I've learned about something called EMDR and I want to try it. And EMDR is a type of therapy that puts you in a like layman's thank you and no. We don't screw around like that around here. Yeah, there you go. Yes, it is an Ahegao curtain. I make them. You can find them on my website, etsy.com/shop/shop Mr.Bones. So I'm like, look, dude, this isn't working out. We need to break up. And I tell him that I'm interested in this thing called EMDR. Sorry, gotta re-catch up. EMDR puts you in basically kind of a near hypnosis state, right? What it is, it's supposed to trigger the left and right hemispheres of the brain. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but the way that we do it is that I wear a headset, much like this, and a little click plays on the left side, then the right side, and the left side, and the right side. And I hold these little pads, these stupid little, I don't know. Here's a container of Mio. It's kind of like that, right? You just hold on to this dumb little plastic thing, and it vibrates in your hand when the thing clicks, okay? So this is stimulating the left and right hemispheres of your brain, and apparently what this does is it puts your brain into the same frequency that it is in when you are in REM sleep. Now, REM sleep is when we sort our whole short-term, long-term memory thing. So if you have unresolved trauma, if when you were a little boy, I held a gun to your face and said, if you can't do 1,000,000 jumping jacks, I'm going to fucking kill you, and then laughed and told you I was kidding after you desperately tried to do your 100th, you may then have trauma, and you may hide that trauma in the back of your mind. So you then go into EMDR, and your therapist will say, tell me about the jumping jacks. And you close your eyes, and you listen to the clicks, and then you describe in excruciating detail. I jumped 2 feet off the ground. I remember I felt a cramp in my right calf. The smell was kind of like popcorn, I think. That we had made popcorn earlier that night. The television was on in the background. I think I remember commercials. What commercial do you remember? Like a jingle for something. Okay. I want you to think about that moment. I want you to think about the pain that you were in, the physical pain, and we're going to do it again. And you shut your eyes and you think about that excruciatingly terrible thing while the things go click, 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 click. This shit is therapy. Let me tell you what. It's not. It's not therapeutic. It's therapeutic. It hurts. God, it hurts. So I'm like, look, I want to try this EMDR shit. And he's like, I have a therapist here in the office who is practiced in it. We can get it switched over. And that's how I met Miss Vanya. That's a first name, not a last name. Y'all don't get that. You can't have my therapist's last name. Like, you can't find that first name in my state. Come on now. All right, so Vanya is fucking badass, all right? As we remember, as we start experiencing our other sense memories attached to our trauma. I'm sorry, guys. Trigger warning trauma, I guess? Trigger warning PTSD and trauma. I won't go in any further kind of garbage like that, though. But point is, so Vanya is 2 years younger than me. And that almost was enough to ruin it. That was almost enough to ruin my relationship with Vanya. Because then I was like, can I respect you? You're younger than me. How can you possibly know as much as me about this? Well, you did go to school for it. It's not like I didn't go to school. Oh. You do a good job. I'll keep trying. So I kept going to Vanya. And we did this shit. I did some childhood. I was like, let's start with easy childhood trauma. Mom was out of town a lot. And I was like a feral child running around the streets of Phoenix by myself, right? With my mom's truck. At 14. So like, that wasn't, it was like when she'd be out of town and shit when I was like 6 and 7. And I'd just be like wandering around the park being like, what should I do with myself today? Should I go to school? So I was like, let's start with this shit, right? Let's go back to these memories first. And as we did it, I realized what we were doing. And I started getting good at EMDR. The better you get, as my friend was like, I remembered how bad my trauma smelled like Fireball. The better you get at digging up all the other extrasensory information and looking for it while you're in TikTok world, the better you're doing at EMDR. So then I felt like this is something I can improve at. I can't really do that with CBT. I can't really do that with DBT. I can go home and I can meditate and I can think about how we did this. And when I come in next week, I can have a more therapeutic experience because I improved my ability to be receptive to that therapy. That kind of shit jives with me really well. I like being able to put effort and energy into something and feel like I'm getting something out of it because of my effort and energy. Not just I'm reliant on my therapist and how good they are, and that's the end of it. And my therapy is just going to be as good as that. So over like a year, Vanya and I, actually ended up with a really good relationship. There'd be some days that I'd come in, I'd be like, I can't handle EMDR today. Today we're talking about my fucking ex-girlfriend who won't stop calling me. Wow! And that's what we'd do. And then other days I'd be ready. And we'd do it. And my whole next 3 days would be ruined. I would go home and I'd probably just cry the rest of the night. And the next day I'd have like the million-yard stare. You just went through trauma again. You just intentionally put yourself back into trauma. Your therapist just re-broke your leg. And we're trying to reset it. You just went back into the worst fucking memory you had and relived it. in a comfortable, safe environment with someone who's helping you sort through those memories in a adult way. Well, yeah, I know that's positive, but fuck, that's still gonna hurt. So there was a lot of days I wasn't strong enough to handle EMDR. That's a weird statement. Aside from my physical illness and like being like the literal statement, I'm not strong enough to lift a television over my head if it's, I'm thinking of those old big TVs. Versus the statement, I'm not strong enough to emotionally handle putting myself in this situation. And a lot of people deal with that with things like a breakup. They're not emotionally strong enough to deal with the altercation that they're going to be having, or altercation is a big one. Or they're not emotionally strong enough to even just sit on their couch for 30 minutes and reflect on the damage that a past relationship may have done to them and the bad habits that it may have imparted and things like that, or good habits that can come from a bad trauma and becoming comfortable with where they came from and things like that. It's a difficult fucking experience. And to say, I'm not strong enough to handle that today was really, really hard the first few times. But then I got it. Then I started getting how to do the whole thing. And we moved on to the deeper shit, the actual molestation experience. And man, like I said, there were days when I'd come out of there and my whole next few days would just be fucked. And it's like, yeah. I mean, I also, don't want to take away what do we define as literally how much your brain or your emotions can lift? How much can your emotions bench, brah? I mean, that is something. That is strength, right? So what are we talking? Maybe endurance? I don't know. Strength is knowing your limitations, though, because you can't run up to a 10-ton weight and just be like, I can lift this because I'm the strongest man in the world. You'll throw your back out. So, yeah, it is knowing your limitations. And there's also something to be said about the actual strength that you have and how much you can do. What you're capable of accomplishing in a day emotionally is different person to person. And I'm going to toot my own horn and say that I am way capable. I'm not going to toot my own horn. I'll compare myself to myself. I am so much more capable of handling 3-4 emotionally traumatic experiences in a day than I was 3-4 years ago, where I could handle 1 or 2 and it would completely knock me on my ass and I'd be ruined. Now I could probably have my girlfriend break up with me, a family member die, lose my job, and my house could be on fire, and then I'd be like, all right, well, shit. So I'm back. I had a lot of life things go on, and I had to stop seeing Vanya. And we left off really at the tail end of dealing with that trauma. I feel like I resolved it. There may be little crumbs here and there about it in my mind, but I'm better able to deal with those because now I get it. Oh, don't not think about that. Think about the thing. Allow your mind to experience that horrifying memory. But only do it when you're safe, when you're feeling good, when you have a buddy to hold on to. It's about knowing the time and place to do these things, and there's a time and place even outside the therapist's office that I've found now, in a way I've found to be able to do this kind of meditation and actually get shit done in my own mind and hunt down those last little bits in there of these traumas and say, okay, it's time to get you out of the back of my mind. And whether that means going up to a friend or a family member and being like, I literally remember the taste of salt on this person's skin when I was 6. I just need to get that off my chest. Sorry. Fuck, if you have to drop that on the grocery store clerk when she says how are you doing today, you get it off your chest. Get it out there, because that stuff is poison and it is killing you. And that was the whole thing I learned in EMDR. And I learned how to do that best and how to do it without hurting myself. So I had a year off from Vanya while life crap happened, and I came back and I was like, I want to see Vanya. And the office was like, her schedule's completely full. I was like, send her an email and just say it's me and that I will take like same day cancellations. And I got a message back the next day, and it was like, Vanya said she made room in her schedule for you on this day at this time. And I'm like, sounds like I'm taking that slot. You know, like they didn't give me an option. They were like, this is the date and time you can see her. And I've been very upfront about, because I have to see their psychiatrist, and I had to see one of their nurses, and I've had to talk to one of their admins. And I've been super upfront, like, I am only here to see Vanya. Your entire clinic sucks. Everything about your administration sucks. All of your rules and all of the way you handle everything is just idiotic. But you have the best therapist in the fucking state in this office. So let me see her. So I got to see her today, and all we did, like, she opens the door and she sees me, and she just like starts clapping and is bent over with excitement. And she's like, oh my God. And I come over and she gives me a big hug, and she's like giddy. There was like some pieces of paperwork she still had to do, and she's like running to the manager's office and back to her office. She's like, okay, just give me one more second and then we'll get started. She like runs off. She's like, I'm so excited to hear everything that happened. So that was like a really good feeling, you know, to know that this person that only listens to my emotional problems because they're paid to do so is actually excited to see me. Like, I can visible excitement. So, all we did today was talk about the past year, everything from me going to Colorado, being homeless, friends going to prison. I started a t-shirt company. Hey, I took my wing out on camera. Hey, now I just talk on camera, and people are starting to buy my t-shirts. Well, glad we could catch up. Bye, Vanya. See you next time. You know, how much can you really get done in an hour? I had to explain a year of my life in an hour's time. So I did the best I could, and we laughed, and it was a lot of fun. And she made me feel really good about everything that I've done in 2019. She was impressed at how much I accomplished in 2019, knowing me, and how much she expected of me. So that makes me feel like I did it in 2019. I can close this year out. I feel like I can coast out the rest of this year and say, I'm happy with what I got done. Bones 2020. And I told her about Bones 2020. And I told her all about you guys. And I told her about that I've been building this community where people are super open about, you know, their emotions and are super helpful to one another. And we're working around things like toxic masculinity. And, you know, I'm trying to get a lot of girls involved in the chat because girls don't have as much of a place on the internet. And I want the guys that I'm friends with to be involved with them and hear their perspective more often, like all this shit. And so then she's like we're talking about a couple, she's like, so what do you want to get done in therapy over the next year? And I'm like, hi, Suki. And I'm like, well, you know, I'd like to maybe talk about this. I'd like to maybe talk about that. Like, I was like, I want to talk about my sex life. Like, there's fucking issues, right? I'm an American man. None of us are getting the right sex at the moment. And if you are, good for you. Fuck off. So she's like, well, why don't you talk to your stream about that? Why don't you talk to your friends about that live? It'll give you something to talk about, and it'll show people you can be vulnerable, and maybe they can tell their stories and stuff like that. So she's all about this concept of that, like, I should take my psychological issues and fucking be super open about them on the stream. Which we talked about. I'm like, isn't that dangerous? There's some pretty awful people out there who want to, you know, shit all over you. Just they want to come in my room and call me gay and shit just for the way I look. Like, let alone once I start fucking crying on stream because I'm talking about my fucking deep issues. And she's like, you know what? I think that you're strong enough to handle that. I think that, you know, if you're serious about building this community, showing them that vulnerability would give other people strength, and you know, you have to be the change you want to see. So if you can do it, then maybe other people could do it. She's a very hopeful person, but she got me very inspired. She got me all worked up, all fired up. So I'm really excited to try and bring a focus of mental health in, especially with the physical health things that we talk about. Spilling tears is a powerful magic. Tears are a potent magical supply. Oh god, I forgot to add that to the list of things that we could do on stream. We can have like a magic with a K night where we like summon demons and stuff. All right. So I have another appointment right after Christmas, and so that'll be what, the 27th, be right before New Year's, and I think that the whole point of the next appointment, I'm going to sit down and be like, let's talk about Bones 2020, baby. Hey, you're welcome to cry about it, sunshine. But so yeah, I want to tell you guys that story. I want to tell you about seeing her. I want to tell you about how excited it made me. I want to tell you guys about the ups and downs of dealing with therapists, dealing with therapy, dealing with the whole healthcare system and mental health care system. They made me sign an attendance sheet today because I was late to 2 appointments. There's a fucking car accident in front of me. I'm an adult. Let me listen to an attendant. Fuck yourself. All right. So we're here to listen and buy your shirts. Hey, Etsy.com/shop Mr.Bones. We're getting our own website here in 2020. And we're going to officially have the Bones Zone. The Bones, MrBones.zone. So, soon we'll be there. But like I said, I figured we would just mark this one off here, put markers each in. So that way we could have a nice little video about mental health and an intro. Maybe I can decompress after some of my therapy sessions in a vlog kind of style. And then after I decompress, we can have open discussions about stuff that came up through that, or